The gunshot echoed through the marble halls of the Anderson mansion. Blood pooled on the white Italian tile, spreading like spilled wine across the floor. Detective Morrison stood frozen, staring at the body of one of the world's richest men. But this wasn't a murder. It was something far worse. What could drive a man who had everything to pull that trigger? The answer will shock you. Before we reveal what really happened that night, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to see how this story ends. Alexander Anderson woke up in his penthouse suite overlooking Manhattan. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. From his bed, he could see the entire city below, a kingdom of glass and steel that he'd helped build. His net worth was estimated at $47 billion. He owned properties on 6 continents, employed over 200,000 people, and his face graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Fortune. But when he looked in the mirror that morning, he saw a stranger. The man staring back at him had everything the world could offer, yet his eyes were hollow, empty. His phone buzzed. 18 missed calls, 42 emails, 316 messages across various platforms. The world wanted Alexander Anderson. Everyone wanted a piece of him. Everyone except the one person who mattered. Alexander wasn't born into wealth. 43 years ago, he entered the world in a trailer park in rural Kentucky. His father, drunk more often than sober, worked occasional construction jobs. His mother cleaned houses for families who had more in their guest bathrooms than the Andersons had in their entire home. Young Alex, as he was called then, wore the same 3 shirts to school, rotated throughout the week. The other kids noticed. They always notice. Tommy Richardson, the mayor's son, made sure everyone knew about trailer trash Alex. But Alex had something those rich kids didn't. He had hunger, not just for food, though there were plenty of nights he went to bed with an empty stomach. He had hunger for something more, for a life that meant something, for a future that didn't look like his present. At 9 years old, he started his first business. He collected aluminum cans from dumpsters and roadsides, turned them in for cash, 5 cents per can. He needed 200 cans to make $10. He collected 200 cans a day. By age 12, he had saved $3,000. His father found the money hidden in a shoebox under his bed, spent it all on a weekend in Vegas, came home broke and broken. Alex never forgave him. But more importantly, he never forgot the lesson. Trust no one. Depend on no one. Build something so big that no one could ever take it away. At 16, Alex lied about his age and got a job at a local tech repair shop. He had a gift for understanding how things work. Computers, people, systems. He could take them apart and put them back together, better than before. By 18, he'd saved enough to buy the shop from his retiring boss. By 20, he'd expanded to 3 locations. By 22, he developed a proprietary software that revolutionized inventory management for small businesses. Then came the moment that changed everything. Marcus Webb, a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, walked into one of his shops. His laptop had crashed during a business trip. Alex fixed it in 20 minutes. But what caught Marcus's attention wasn't the speed. It was the questions Alex asked. The way he understood the problem before Marcus finished explaining it. Marcus made an offer. $5 million for 50% of Alex's software company. Alex countered. $10 million for 30%. Marcus laughed. Then he wrote the check. Within 5 years, Anderson Tech Solutions was valued at $2 billion. Within 10 years, Alex had bought out Marcus's share and expanded into 17 countries. By 35, he was one of the richest self-made billionaires in the world. But here's what the business magazines never wrote about. Here's what the success stories always leave out. With every million he made, Alex felt less. Not more. Less. At 28, Alexander met Catherine Pierce at a charity gala. She was different from the others. She didn't know who he was, didn't care about his money. She was a teacher at an inner-city school, attending the gala because her principal had an extra ticket. She challenged him, questioned him, told him that wealth without purpose was just numbers on a screen. For the first time since he was that hungry kid collecting cans, Alexander felt something. He felt seen. They married within a year. Catherine continued teaching. She refused to quit, despite Alexander's wealth. She said the kids needed her. He admired that. Maybe even loved her more for it. 3 years later, their daughter Emma was born. Alexander held her in the hospital, this tiny perfect thing, and he made a promise. She would never know hunger, never know what it felt like to wear the same 3 shirts, never be called trash by anyone. He would give her everything he never had. 2 years after Emma came Sophie, another perfect daughter, another promise made. But here's what Alexander couldn't understand. The same drive that pulled him out of poverty was now pushing him away from everything that mattered. The business trips got longer, the meetings more important, the deals more complex. Catherine understood at first. She knew what drove him. But understanding doesn't fill the empty seat at the dinner table. It doesn't tuck children into bed at night. Emma's first steps. Alexander was in Tokyo. Her first words. He was in London. Her first day of kindergarten. Frankfurt. Sophie's ballet recital. Shanghai. Her 6th birthday. Dubai. the school play where she played the lead. He made it halfway through before his phone rang. A merger was falling apart. He had to take the call. He never came back to his seat. Catherine tried. God, she tried. But you can't compete with an empire. She filed for divorce when Emma was 12 and Sophie was 10. Alexander didn't fight it. How could he? She was right. He was never there. The settlement was generous. $50 million. Full custody with visitation rights for Alexander. A mansion in Connecticut. Everything she could want. Except the one thing money couldn't buy. A husband who was present. A father for his daughters. Alexander threw himself deeper into work. If he couldn't be a good father, he'd be a great provider. He doubled his worth in 3 years. Tripled it in 5. Emma and Sophie wanted for nothing. Designer clothes. Private schools. Vacations to Europe. A trust fund that would make them millionaires on their 18th birthdays. But what they wanted was time. His time. Emma, now 16, had stopped calling. Stopped asking him to visit. She was polite when he called. Cold. Distant. She'd learned from the best. Sophie, 14, still tried. Still called every Sunday. Still said, "I love you, Dad," at the end of every conversation. But Alexander could hear it. The hope fading a little more with each call. The little girl who once believed her father hung the moon was realizing he couldn't even hang around. Then came Victoria, 29 years old, beautiful, sophisticated. She worked in his marketing department, started sitting in on executive meetings, impressed Alexander with her insights, her drive. She reminded him of himself at that age. The affair started at a conference in Miami. It wasn't love. Alexander knew that. It was convenience, companionship without complications. Someone who didn't expect what he couldn't give. Victoria moved into his penthouse 6 months later. Catherine found out through Emma, who found out through social media. The trust that was already broken shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. The call came on a Tuesday. Alexander was in a board meeting, presenting quarterly earnings. His phone lit up. Catherine. He ignored it. She called again and again. He excused himself, stepped into the hallway. Emma tried to kill herself. 4 words. 21 letters. A father's worst nightmare. She'd taken pills. 47 of them. A classmate found her in the school bathroom. She was at St. Mary's Hospital. Intensive care. They didn't know yet if there would be permanent damage. Alexander's driver broke every speed limit getting to the hospital. His helicopter would have been faster, but it was in maintenance. For the first time in 20 years, his wealth couldn't buy him what he needed most. Time. Catherine was in the waiting room. Her eyes were red, swollen. She looked at Alexander like he was a stranger. Maybe he was. She left a note, Catherine said. Her voice was flat, empty. "Do you want to read it?" Alexander took the paper. His hands were shaking. The note was short. Emma's handwriting, usually so careful and precise, was barely legible. "I'm tired of being the daughter of a ghost. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm tired of being not enough to make him stay. Maybe if I'm gone, he'll finally feel something." Alexander collapsed into a chair. The most powerful businessman in the world, the man who'd built an empire from nothing, couldn't breathe. Couldn't think, couldn't function. His daughter wanted to die, and it was his fault. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. They'd pumped her stomach. She was stable but unconscious. The next 24 hours were critical. Brain damage was possible. Organ failure was a risk. They just had to wait. Sophie sat in a corner, silent. She hadn't spoken since Alexander arrived, hadn't looked at him. Catherine held her, stroked her hair. Whispered words Alexander couldn't hear. Victoria called 12 times. Texted. Where was he? The Singapore investors were waiting. The Tokyo deal needed his signature. Alexander turned off his phone. At 2 a.m., a doctor emerged. Emma was awake, asking for her mother. Only her mother. Catherine went in. Alexander watched through the window. Watched his ex-wife hold their daughter. Watched Emma cry. Watched Catherine cry. He was on the outside looking in. That's where he'd always been. He just never realized it until now. An hour later, Catherine came out. "She'll see you," she said. 5 minutes. Alexander walked into that hospital room, and the man who'd faced down CEOs, investors, and rivals without flinching felt his knees buckle. Emma looked so small in that bed, so fragile. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped and hummed. "Hi, Dad," she said. Her voice was hoarse from the breathing tube they'd removed. He didn't know what to say. "How do you apologize for missing a life? For being absent while present? For choosing everything except the things that mattered?" "I didn't do it for attention," Emma said. "I did it because I genuinely didn't want to be here anymore. Do you know what that feels like? To be so tired of hurting that not existing seems easier?" "No," Alexander whispered. "I don't." "You should," Emma said. "Because you're just like me, Dad. You're so busy running from your pain that you don't realize you're spreading it to everyone around you. The difference is, I tried to end my pain. You just try to outrun yours." Alexander drove that night. No destination, no plan. He just drove. Left the hospital, left the city, kept going until the buildings turned to trees and the lights faded to stars. He pulled over at a rest stop somewhere in Pennsylvania. 3:47 a.m. The parking lot was empty except for 2 big rigs and a minivan. He thought about his life. Really thought about it. Not about the achievements, or the wealth, or the empire. About the cost. His father had taken his $3,000. That theft had taught Alexander to trust no one, to depend on no one, to build walls so high that nothing could get in. But walls work both ways. They keep pain out, but they also keep love out, keep connection out, keep life out. Emma was right. He'd been running his whole life, running from poverty, running from his father, running from the pain of never being enough. And in the running, he'd become exactly what he'd feared most: absent, unavailable, a ghost in his own life. His phone, still off, sat on the passenger seat. When he turned it on, there were 63 messages: business associates, investors, Victoria, and one from Sophie, sent at 3:22 a.m. Dad, I know you're probably in a meeting or on a plane or somewhere important. I know I'm not supposed to bother you when you're working, but Emma almost died tonight. She almost died. And I almost lost my sister, and I need you. Not your money, not your gifts. You. I need my dad. If you're reading this, please just come back. Please. Alexander sat in his car in that empty parking lot and cried. Really cried. For the first time since his mother's funeral, when he was 19 and swore he'd never let himself be vulnerable again. Alexander Anderson broke. The sun rose over the Pennsylvania hills. Alexander watched it, this daily miracle he never took time to see. When had he last watched a sunrise? When had he last stopped long enough to notice the world turning? He made a decision. Maybe the first real decision he'd made in 20 years. Everything else had been reactions. Responses to fear, to ambition, to the hungry kid inside him who was terrified of going back to that trailer park. But that kid was gone. He'd left that trailer decades ago. And in refusing to let himself be that boy ever again, he'd lost sight of who he wanted to become. Alexander turned his car around, drove back to the hospital. It was 7 a.m. when he arrived. Catherine was asleep in a chair beside Emma's bed. Sophie was curled up against her mother. Emma was awake, staring at the ceiling. I'm sorry, Alexander said. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix years of absence, doesn't undo the pain, doesn't make you suddenly okay. But I need you to know that I'm sorry, and I'm here. Not for 5 minutes, not until my phone rings. I'm here. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. For how long? As long as you need me. I've needed you my whole life, Dad. I know, Alexander said. His voice broke. I know, and I can't undo that. But I'm here now, and if you'll let me, I want to be here for the rest of it. All of it. The hard parts and the good parts and the boring parts. All of it. Emma stayed in the hospital for 6 days. Alexander stayed for all of them. He slept in the chair beside her bed, ate hospital cafeteria food, cancelled meetings, ignored calls, turned down a $20 billion merger because it required his presence in Geneva. His board was furious. His investors panicked. Victoria left him, taking a severance package and her wounded pride. Alexander didn't care. He read to Emma books she'd loved as a child: Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, The Chronicles of Narnia, stories he'd never had time to read with her when she was young. Sophie came every day after school. At first, she was guarded, waiting for Alexander to leave, waiting for him to check his watch and say he had to go. But he didn't leave, didn't check his watch, just stayed. On the 4th day, Sophie climbed into the chair beside him and fell asleep against his shoulder. It was the first time she'd touched him in 3 years. Catherine watched all of this from the doorway. She didn't speak to Alexander, not really. But on the 6th day, when the doctor said Emma could go home, Catherine approached him in the hallway. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, Alexander admitted. I have no idea how to do this, how to be what they need. I spent so long being someone else that I don't know if I can change. Can't or won't. I want to. God, Catherine, I want to. But wanting isn't the same as doing. What if I fail? What if I try and I'm still not enough? Catherine's expression softened, just slightly. You were never not enough, Alex. You just weren't present. There's a difference. The first week was the hardest. Alexander moved out of his penthouse, rented an apartment 10 minutes from Catherine's house. He stepped down as CEO of Anderson Tech Solutions, promoting his COO to take his place. He remained chairman of the board but handed off day-to-day operations. Wall Street reacted poorly. His company's stock dropped 17% in one day. Business analysts called it career suicide. Fortune magazine ran a cover story: "The Billionaire Who Walked Away." Alexander didn't read it. He showed up at Sophie's soccer practice on Tuesday. She scored a goal and looked into the stands. Saw him there. Her smile was worth more than every dollar in his accounts. He attended Emma's therapy sessions, not in the room, but in the waiting area, ready if she needed him, present. He had dinner with his daughters every Sunday. At first, the conversations were stilted, awkward. Years of distance don't disappear overnight. But slowly, meal by meal, they found their rhythm. Emma started talking to him, really talking, about school, about her friends, about the boy she liked, about how scared she'd been in those moments after swallowing the pills, when she realized she didn't actually want to die. She just wanted the pain to stop. Alexander listened, didn't try to fix it, didn't offer solutions, just listened. That's what Catherine taught him. Sometimes people don't need answers. They just need to be heard. 3 months after Emma's suicide attempt, Alexander sat in a coffee shop with Catherine, not as husband and wife, not even as friends, as two people trying to figure out how to co-parent in the aftermath of trauma. I need to tell you something, Alexander said, about why I was the way I was. Catherine waited. I thought if I gave them everything, they'd never have to want for anything, never have to feel what I felt as a kid. The hunger, the shame, the poverty. I thought money could protect them from pain. I was trying to save them from my childhood. But in doing that, I stole their childhood. I gave them everything except what they actually needed. Me. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because I'm scared, Catherine. I'm terrified that I've broken something that can't be fixed. That Emma and Sophie will never fully trust me. That I'll always be the father who wasn't there, no matter how present I am now. Catherine was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Emma told me something yesterday. She said that for the first time in years, when she thinks about the future, she doesn't feel empty. She feels something. Maybe not hope yet, but something. Alexander's eyes filled with tears. You can't undo the past. Catherine continued. You can't get back those years. Those moments. But you can be here for the moments ahead. That has to be enough, because it's all any of us have. Which brings us back to the beginning. To the gunshot. To the blood on the marble floor. To Detective Morrison standing over the body. But let me tell you what really happened, because the truth is more complicated than it appears. That night, Alexander was at the mansion. The house he'd bought at the height of his success. The house that once represented everything he'd achieved. The house that now stood mostly empty, a monument to a life he no longer wanted. He'd been cleaning out his old office, packing up files, documents, remnants of the man he used to be. He found something in the back of a drawer, his father's old revolver, the one his father had carried for protection that never came. The one Alexander had taken after his father's death, a reminder of where he came from. Alexander held that gun, felt its weight, thought about how easy it would be. One moment of pressure. One split second. The pain would stop. The guilt would stop. The fear of failing his daughters again would stop. He put the gun to his temple, finger on the trigger, and then his phone rang. Emma. Video call. He almost didn't answer. But something made him put down the gun and pick up the phone. Emma's face filled the screen. She was smiling. Actually smiling. Dad, I got into Columbia. Early admission. I got in. Sophie's face appeared beside her sister's. We wanted you to be the first to know. Catherine's voice in the background. Well, second. They told me 5 minutes ago. Alexander looked at his daughters, at their joy, their excitement, their hope, and he realized something. He wasn't that scared kid in the trailer park anymore. He wasn't the absent father anymore. He was something new, something better, still imperfect, still learning, but present, trying. Here, he set the gun on his desk. Told his daughters he loved them. Told them he was proud. Told them he'd be at the celebration dinner Catherine was planning. The gun sat on that desk for 3 days. A test. A reminder. On the third day, Alexander called Detective Morrison, an old friend from his charity work, asked him to come dispose of it properly. The gun needed to go. That version of himself needed to go. Morrison arrived, saw the gun on the desk, saw Alexander's face, and understood without being told. He'd seen that look before. The look of someone who'd stood at the edge and stepped back. You're making the right choice, Morrison said. I know, Alexander replied. I have to. My daughters need me to. Morrison picked up the gun to take it away, and it went off. Not at Alexander, not at anyone. A mechanical failure, an accident, a reminder of how quickly everything can change. The bullet hit the wall behind Alexander. Missed him by 6 inches. Blood on the floor from Morrison's hand, cut by the gun's recoil. Not a suicide. Not a murder. Just life being messy and imperfect and terrifying and beautiful. Alexander Anderson is 43 years old. He's worth $31 billion now. Down from 47. He sold off assets. Stepped back from ventures. Chose less money for more time. He has dinner with his daughters every Sunday. He never misses Sophie's soccer games. He's at every one of Emma's therapy appointments, waiting in the lobby. Ready, present. The empire he built still stands, but it's no longer his entire world. It's just what he does. Not who he is. Catherine says they'll never be together again. The trust is broken beyond repair. Alexander accepts that. Some things can't be fixed. Only moved forward from. But they're friends now. Real friends. United in the mission of helping their daughters heal. Of creating a family that looks different than it used to but works better than it ever did. Emma still struggles. Therapy is helping, but healing isn't linear. She has bad days. Dark days. But now, when she has those days, she calls her father, and he answers. Always. Sophie asks him sometimes why he changed. Why now, after all those years? Alexander tells her the truth, that sometimes we don't see what we're losing until it's almost gone. That he was so focused on building something great that he forgot to be part of something good. Last week, Sophie asked him if he regretted any of it. The success, the money, the empire. Alexander thought about that. Really thought about it. And here's what he said. I don't regret what I built. I regret what I sacrificed to build it. But I can't undo the past. I can only try to do better with the present. And that's what I'm doing. Every single day. Trying to be better than I was yesterday. That's all any of us can do. The moral of this story isn't that money is evil. It's not that ambition is wrong. It's not even that success comes at too high a price. The moral is simpler than that. You can have everything the world has to offer and still have nothing. Or you can have less and have everything that truly matters. Alexander Anderson learned that lesson the hard way. His daughter almost died teaching it to him. The question is, what will it take for you to learn it? If this story touched you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And tell me in the comments, what's the one thing in your life you're sacrificing for success? Is it worth it? Let's talk about it.